Okay, I'm going to go ahead and kick us off and give a little introduction, and we'll still have time for folks to be jumping on. I look at the screen and I see that we are missing a few folks, but thanks for joining us today. And thank you to the staff and leadership of the Disability Resource Center who have worked with FAMPO to make this discussion panel happen. I'm Stacy Fine, the Public Involvement and Title VI Coordinator for the Fredericksburg Region's Transportation Planning Organization, commonly referred to as FAMPO. And a large part of my job involves bringing community members into the transportation planning process by collecting their thoughts and giving them a platform to share their transportation needs, concerns, and visions with decision makers. And the federal government tasks metropolitan planning organizations like FAMPO with conducting a transportation planning process for the region that is continuing, meaning ongoing, cooperative, as well as comprehensive. So when we see community input on transportation issues and use that community feedback to make wise transportation decisions, we're fulfilling that important duty to conduct cooperative and comprehensive transportation planning. Your participation today is supporting the effort to cooperatively develop transportation plans for the Fredericksburg region and ensure that our transportation system works for all members of the community. I'd like to thank the decision makers who have joined us today to listen to our panel speakers. Decision makers and transportation officials, you will have time towards the end of today's session to acknowledge what you've heard from our speakers. Let me just note who we have on for our decision makers and transportation professionals. We have Alex Oziak, the Transportation Program Manager for Stafford County, Brandon Brown, the Transportation Planner for Stafford County, Christine Hoffner, the Manager of Project Development for the Virginia Railway Express, Cynthia Porter Johnson, the Project Manager, Transportation Administration for the Potomac-Rappahannock Transportation Commission, Alex Long, the Mayor of the Town of Port Royal, Jason Graham, Fredericksburg City Council Member, Lee Anderson, GW Ride Connect Assistant Director, Nancy Long, Caroline County Supervisor, Congresswoman Spanberger, a member of the U.S. House of Representatives representing Virginia's 7th Congressional District, Jamie Jackson, Director of Fred Transit, Paul Agnello, Assistant Director of Transportation for Spotsylvania County, Adam Derrick, Transportation Project Manager for Stafford County, Josh Cole, Delegate for Virginia House District 28, Jennifer Faulkner, Mobility Manager for Healthy Generations Area Agency on Aging, and Jordan Chandler, FAMPO Transportation Planner. If I have forgot to mention your name, please towards the end of the meeting when we turn it over for our listeners to give comments on what they've heard, please go ahead and speak up and let us know that you're here. I greatly appreciate the Disability Resource Center advocates for their willingness to join us today and share their transportation challenges or the challenges of those that they serve. Their stories hopefully will shine a light on the areas that we need to improve. And I will turn it over now to Kimberly Lett, the Deputy Director and Program Manager for the Disability Resource Center, who will now introduce her organization and then our speakers. Kim, over to you. Oh, you're on mute, Kim.
Okay, there we go. Thank you. Thank you, Stacy, and thank you all for joining us today. I work at the Disability Resource Center. I've been here 16 years, and along with me is Deborah Lately. She has been here a year, so we've got a long time staffer and a short time staffer here putting this together. But the reason we are here today is to talk about transportation and the issue that it is to people with, can be to people with disabilities. Before we go any further on that, let me just tell you, if you don't already know, what kind of organization the Disability Resource Center is. We are a center for independent living. We're one of 17 in the state of Virginia, and our whole purpose is to help people with disabilities to live as independently as possible and to live up to their fullest potential. So somebody, can visit the Disability Resource Center and ask us to help them with a goal that they have to maybe live more independently. It is all based on an individual's goals, not on our assessment and not on their diagnosis. It's based on what they need to learn based on their assessment to live more independently. We serve all ages, so we do serve young ones. Of course, they're not necessarily going to come in and tell us exactly what they need. So we do work with individuals' families. We do work with community members, and we collaborate a lot with those in the community. I know several of you on the call today, which is great. 5 core services that we have to offer as a Center for Independent Living are information and referral, probably the biggest thing that we do, independent living skills training, peer counseling or mentoring, nursing home transition and high school transition to an adult life for those with disabilities, and what we're doing today, advocacy. So in addition to that, Centers for Independent Living can offer other services that their community may need. We have a deaf and hard of hearing clinic. One of the biggest things we have is our equipment connection. It's a durable medical loan closet, if you would say. It's a building where people donate durable medical equipment to us, and we give that back out for free to the community, doing almost 2,000 or more pieces of equipment a year. So we do a variety of things. So right now we're concentrating on our advocacy core service, and with that is transportation. So I will let our speakers take over. And the first one here with us today is Kelly Kaiser. Kelly is a staff member of the Disability Resource Center, but she came to us as an individual with a disability that needed help. Then she began to volunteer for us, and now she works for us. So Kelly, if you want to take it away.
Unmute yourself, Kelly. Unmute. Unmute.
All right, gotcha.
Okay.
Thank you, Kim. I just wanted to start by saying that according to the US Census, roughly 20% of the population is living with a disability. At age 47, I became suddenly disabled due to an extreme medical event that placed me in a coma for 21 days and subsequently in a nursing rehab facility for 3 months. At the time, I was a single mom with 3 children, 1 in college and 2 in high school. I was working full-time while being an active volunteer in Scouts, school activities, and my church. Driving around town was practically a second job. Upon returning home from the nursing facility, I relied on friends and extended family to provide transportation to me and my daughter, who was 14 at the time. On rare occasions, I would call a ride service to transport my daughter. My large bariatric wheelchair did not fit in many of the cars that were available for hire. After 9 months of being homebound and desperate to get back out in the community, I started a volunteer job here at the Disability Resource Center. My mother, aged 81 at the time, would drive me to and from the location. I lived 4 miles from the office, normally a 10-minute drive. I looked into the Fred bus system after learning that they could accommodate a wheelchair or scooter and also had the ability to create a deviated stop near my home. The commute using the Fred bus with transfers and wait times would be an excruciating 2 hours each way. I only volunteered 3 hours at a time due to physical limitations. A complete year after becoming disabled, I was able to attend rehabilitative driving school at the Woodrow Wilson Rehabilitation Center with the help of DARS, the Virginia Department of Aging and Rehabilitative Services, to learn how to drive a vehicle with accommodations for my disability. Another 9 months later, I was able to finally purchase my transportation freedom, a van with hand controls, side entry ramp, and a driver's seat with electronic transfer capabilities. I am thrilled to be able to drive myself and my family to the places we need to go, but our transportation challenges are not over. There are challenges to finding parking spaces that are van accessible. I need 8 feet of clear space to deploy my ramp and exit my vehicle. Many times the access aisles is blocked by vehicles or shopping carts. Other times the spaces are being used by cars that could park in a regular accessible space that are open. Signage to remind drivers to keep access aisles areas clear is almost non-existent. Parking lot owners do not maintain a painting schedule that keeps accessible spots and aisles marked clearly on the pavement. More van accessible spots are needed. Only 1 in 6 accessible spots needs to be marked as van accessible. I often post on my Facebook not only pictures of my grandchildren, but my other favorite topic is my parking challenges. So Rebecca, would you mind showing some of the pictures that I've given you? So this first one is just me being excited that I finally got my driver's license again. Almost as exciting, if not more exciting than when I was 16. The next one, this picture was taken outside a law office behind the Stafford Courthouse. Both accessible spaces are rendered useless to someone who has a side ramp or a lift for their mobility device. The next picture I just thought was funny. Someone had given me this card to place on people's windshields. It was given to me by a fellow driver with a disability. I've never done it, but you'll see later that I have written notes. The next picture, I do most of my shopping at the Ferry Farm Walmart in Stafford County, and there are many, many violations of people using the hashed area for parking convenience, motorcycles, vans, regular cars. The next one is in Spotsylvania County at the Wawa on Mine Road. As you can see, they are clearly marked in parked in the hashed space so that someone cannot exit their vehicle if they need to. The next picture is a personal note that I wrote. I was trying to be nice. And I write, I know it might be hard to see. You are not in a parking space. You are illegally parked in the handicap access. Please be more aware. And this was at the Greenwich Shopping Center on Lafayette Boulevard in the city of Fredericksburg. As you can see, they are clearly parked, where the access is. The next picture, this is an accessible space at the Mary Washington Hospital near the emergency entrance. This was blocked with construction debris for several months. I called, I emailed, I finally took my picture to social media, and shortly thereafter, the construction debris was cleared and that space is now accessible. The next two pictures are also outside of Mary Washington Hospital emergency department. This is actually, sometimes this space actually has somebody parked in it, but it is the hashed space in between two handicap spaces. The next picture is from the other side, and you can see how faded the painting marks are, and it's very disappointing. The next picture is a success story. This I took at Germanna Community College. Sorry, I made a little happy face on my Facebook post. They do have a sign that says no parking in the access aisle. I do wish more companies and organizations would put something like that. The next picture, two pictures are both again at the Ferry Farm Walmart, just because I'm there a lot. There's a truck, and then the next one is a motorcycle. The last picture is on the Staples store at Plank Road in Fredericksburg, and they placed their reserved for online pickup sign in their reserved accessible spot. I spoke to an employee when I went inside who merely shrugged his shoulders. I then sent a message to a friend who works at the Fredericksburg Police Department. She said they had an identical complaint a few days before, and she would ask one of the officers to stop by the store. My point here is that even if you have your own, way to get around, if you're not using public transportation, it's still difficult. But some of the things that I thought about when asked to speak on this panel were, if I had to make suggestions to people in the decision-making positions, I would say, regarding the Fred bus system, work towards creating routes that do not require such long transit times. I know that's difficult in the widespread area that we have, and that we don't really have what seems to be regular commuter routes, but I do feel that there is some work to be done. And then if Fred would consider providing on-demand transportation for people with disabilities, again, I know this is financial constraints. For area businesses, I'd like for them to maintain parking lot painting schedules. and install signage about not parking in access aisles and spaces. And for people working in government, consider ordinances requiring more than the required 1 in 6 van spaces. If you ever look, and maybe now you will, when you go out and park, see how many vans, are able to get in a van accessible space, and really how few van accessible spaces there are. And then I'd like for government just to ensure that the ADA requirements are being met, that the access aisles are big enough. A lot of times they're 5 feet wide, they're not 8 feet wide. And so that is the end of my story.
Thank you, Kelly. I appreciate that. I might add too that better law enforcement of individuals doing that, because as I mentioned to Kelly earlier, I ran into somebody at the Ferry Farm Walmart just this weekend, parked illegally, and asked him to move, and he refused. So better enforcement would be great. Our next speaker is Nancy Massonet. Nancy, you want to take it away?
Yes, thank you, Kim. Good afternoon, everyone. My son is a 19-year-old on the autism spectrum, and he is who I'm representing. My son Kyle attends therapies in downtown Fredericksburg, and is often, they do walking trips and those kind of things. So they do a lot of pedestrian activities, which even though we oftentimes don't think of that as transportation, it is definitely transportation. So Fredericksburg is a very pedestrian area. Lots of people try to navigate it, but there are several areas in the community where there's either not sidewalks, there are cars that go way too fast. Routinely, crosswalks are not respected by drivers, where it's clearly marked that they need to stop and they don't. And then there's also areas where the crosswalks are not, the paint is not always like it should be, signage, those kind of things. So while it affects all the citizens in Fredericksburg, or all those that would be walkers, it definitely affects those that have cognitive issues, like my son, focus issues, where there's not a great awareness of danger. So he is very much at risk, but also other members of the other people with disabilities that may include the blind or deaf, that would need to have access for audible crosswalks, as well as better visuals. And then people that are in wheelchairs or have scooters or walkers that may take longer to cross. It's just a dangerous situation. So from our perspective, we would love to see more funding for sidewalks and crosswalk signage, increased law enforcement for just the traffic laws and that kind of thing, and then maintenance for signs and those kind of things, so that it's not just beneficial to people with disabilities, but also to the entire community. It creates a safer environment for everyone. And that's my story.
Thank you very much for being here today, Nancy. I appreciate that. And as the mother of a 33-year-old son with autism who still does not know to look both ways when crossing the street, that walkability factor and the safety factor of crossing the streets is very important. Our next speaker today is Jane Leeds. She could not be here with us today, but we do have her story, and Deborah Lately is going to read that.
Hello, everyone. I'm Deborah Lately, and I'm the Director of Advocacy at the Disability Resource Center. And it's an honor to read Jane Leeds' story in her absence. And so she shares with us that if I had to choose one topic only, it would be infrastructure. It is the biggest and most expensive issue for providing equal access. Big ticket items are not popular with those whom are holding the purse strings. I realize and understand the reality of priorities and commitment to other projects. However, the other reality is abundantly clear: the needs of the disabled community. There are many of us have been pushed down the list for decades. Each year it is tabled due to lack of funding and a various reoccurring phrase, maybe there will be room in the next year's budget. Now the need is critical. We have way too many tax burdens whom can't be taxpayers because those holding the purse strings are not willing to make a realistic plan for investing into infrastructure that is accessible to everyone, not just the able-bodied or those who can drive a car. It takes far more financial resources to warehouse those who can't work because they can't get transportation to education, training, jobs, and become taxpayers. It's going to take a substantial investment because it has been neglected, overlooked, and pushed back far too long. The hard reality for the state in our country is now that the baby boomers are leaving the workforce and the US birth rate is down, we don't have time of the educated and or trained workers available to fill highly skilled job positions in this country. There's also the factor that many disabled folks can't get the training and education they need to fill positions needing highly skilled and trained people because they don't have equal access to transportation to facilitate the need. The bottom line is this: can we afford not to have these people on board as workers, taxpayers, renters, mortgage holders, business owners, and the ability to think outside the box creatively in this state? Building more roads, even more cars, is not the solution. Japan, Europe, Scandinavia, and many other countries have proven this fact. Yet, yes, we have the VRE, metro buses, but unlike many places, too many people don't have access due to barriers and obstacles. No sidewalks is probably the single biggest and persuasive barrier for those who are physically challenged. The latter includes the elderly, children, and poor people who can't afford a vehicle. We have parking lots, train platforms, automated ticket machines, but no safe passage for those in wheelchairs, walking with the service dog, or folks who can't drive or have a vehicle. Crossing a parking lot with a service dog on a dark winter morning with caffeine deprived, distracted drivers hunting down a parking space behind the wheel is a kind of a Russian roulette. I know that firsthand. Fredericksburg is growing at a fast clip. It is the last affordable area between Richmond and DC for young families and retirees. The latter will grow older and more challenged over time and will need more resources when they can no longer drive. What will be available to them? Our shared ride services are maxed out now. More and more often, I cannot get rides to places where I need to go: doctor's office, pharmacy, legal, tax offices, personal services, etc. Shared ride services providers are overtaxed and only operate during the weekdays, no evenings, no holidays. Let me ask you this: can you live well with these kind of limitations? I doubt it. So why does the elderly, poor, and disabled have to? I hope those who are listening are really hearing what is said. Time is running out. Not all baby boomers are headed south. Many folks from Northern Virginia are staying here to be close to family and friends. They are used to and expect good service like safe and accessible transportation to be available. The need will grow with the tax base. You had better be ready. That's Jane Leeds. Thank you.
And I thank Jane for submitting that and letting us know her story. I do remember years ago, about 14 years ago, I went to a transportation seminar in DC and sat next to a lady from Bismarck who told me all about their paratransit system. And I thought, Bismarck, North Dakota has a paratransit system. I'm on the East Coast of one of the 13 colonies and we don't have one. So paratransit or a dedicated type of transportation system would be wonderful in this area. Next up is Sonia Molina, and she moved here with her husband. She's from New York and prior to that, Puerto Rico, so she has a story to tell.
Okay, thank you very much. It's a great opportunity to be able to speak here. I'll just say I am a New Yorker, and my husband and I did retire and went to Puerto Rico. And we wound up leaving the island once the Hurricane Maria hit. I had never in my life experienced any type of hurricane, and it was a Category 5. We wound up not having any water, any electricity, food, transportation, communication for about 5 weeks. I didn't even know how to handle that. And finally, my daughter-in-law, who was a registered nurse at Mary Washington Hospital, was able to get us out. And we landed in New York. My husband was hospitalized because of that. And from there, we had to decide where we were going to go. And we picked Virginia. And we picked Fredericksburg because it's a beautiful place to live. And I said, well, this is the place to be. And I'm very grateful to having met Deborah lately, because now I know it still is, because there is this opportunity for me to stay. But I am now confronted with something because my husband has a heart condition, he has kidney failure. He's a diabetic, and he just lost sight in one eye, and he has very poor vision. But even with COVID, with everything that's happened, it's still a good place to live. It's one of the best places to live, I think. And I think it was meant to be this way. But now I'm faced with one thing: transportation. How do I get out of this apartment and go visit the beautiful places that are here? I haven't seen much of anything. And what I've noticed is that I could take Uber, but now Uber is kind of backing off also. If you're not going to take a long trip on Uber, they won't take the call. They'll even cancel on me. Very difficult to go to the appointments. But everything in life is a medical appointment. I want to be able to go to the movies. I want to be able to go to the town. And Uber will not take those short trips. The short trips are it's not happening. They're canceling on me. And there is no bus service. The Fred service is near Wegmans, is where I live, close to Wegmans, but not close enough for my husband to walk it. And so it isn't that close. And I don't mind any other type of transportation, but there just isn't any. And even if I were to get to the mall, I won't be able to travel different areas of Central Park because there's no bus service there. I would like to go from one place to the other, but it is not simple. It's actually, I haven't seen it at all. I never even seen a Fred bus. I've been here 4 years. So, and I know this is not New York. You can't just hop on a bus. That's what I wanted. But I know that this is a great place to live. And I know with good people, things can happen. I trust the government here. I trust it a lot. That's why I stayed. And so I know it's possible. And with Deborah, thank you. Thank you so much. I felt like I was in the Flintstones, I told her. But now I'm back with the Jetsons. So I hope that this government and everybody in it that really do love working and helping us. And I hear all the stories of the women that drive with the disabilities. I still can move around, and I'm grateful to that. My husband is not in a wheelchair yet, and I know that day will come. But I would like the option to be able to move around. And this is the United States. It's beautiful. And Virginia is like the best place to live. And I love Fredericksburg. And I love the people. I've never seen such kindness in my life. And I know the government and the people that are responsible will do something about this, because you don't want to be disabled. You don't want not to have an option. And I want quality of life for my husband. And eventually it'll happen to me. And I want a place to call. I want to be able to call Deborah and say, hey, Deborah, now it's my turn. You got to help me out. and I just love Disability Resource Center. If it wasn't for this, I was thinking of leaving. I'm now staying. So I thank you. And it's a short thing to say, but I hope that this will come out to be something positive, and I'm really grateful for the opportunity to be able to speak here. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sonia. And, you did make a point. One day, we're all aging. There's no option to that. And as we age, our body does not hold up as much as we'd like. And so we all may have a disability at some point in our life. So it's not just for the current people with disabilities, it's for all the community out there that we speak today. And something like you mentioned as transportation just around Central Park and the mall, so that would be, somewhat helpful to all people, but people with disabilities too. So thank you for talking about that and your unfortunate experiences with Uber too, bringing that forth. Okay, our next person is Adriana Gidding. She also is not able to be here, and Deborah has her comments.
All righty, thank you. So Adriana's story is that she is vision impaired, so making transportation a critical issue for her. Due to the lack of sufficient accommodations and/or a paratransit system for those with disability, she says she does not use the Fred bus system. I only go off campus with a friend driving me to where I need to go. If no one is available to drive me, then I do not leave the campus. We believe that audio signals and bus drivers calling out stops would help in this situation.
So that if she were walking, she would have those audio signals. Of course, walking also demands continual sidewalks, and there are several places in our community that you can't walk because there is no sidewalk. I was on Lafayette Avenue the other day and noticed by the old Battlefield restaurant there, a sidewalk, and there's grass and there's a sidewalk. So if you have a wheelchair, walker, scooter, you can't go cross there, and it's a very busy road. So having that ability to walk, and then also if she is able to ride, if she rides the bus, having that the bus drivers call out the stop, and then also call out the stop prior to. So like you're on the metro, they always call out the next stop is so and so. So having that ability would, or having that accommodation would definitely help her. Antoine Fry, where is Antoine? There he is. You want to go ahead and speak?
Unmute your mic.
Okay. Yes, I have issues with the Fred bus as well. I was born with disability from peripheral vision. I can't drive, and the nearest stop is like a farther away. And I live like in the Ottawa community in Fredericksburg, so it's about a mile away, and it takes a while for me to get to the next stop, and there's no way to get there. And I was hoping to get like a paralegal transportation so I can get to stops I want to depend on my parents to take me in everywhere. And that's about it.
Okay, thank you. Every year we have students with disabilities graduating from our high schools. All of them would either like to go on to further education. Several attend Germanna. Others would like to go to work, but transportation is a huge issue. People don't want to rely on their parents, and sometimes their parents can't even provide the transportation because they're working. If all these people, as Jane Leeds said earlier, had the opportunity to work because they had transportation, that would not only be more productive for our community, but it gives you a sense of pride when you're out there working and contributing to the community. Transportation is the biggest issue that transition students face when they graduate school. And it's huge trying to find them ways to get to their jobs all over this region 16. So that's a huge issue. A lot of them end up spending time at home on the couch playing video games because they're not able to get out and about. Okay, Kimberly, you are next.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm here actually representing my son, basically the pediatric community, because he's only 10 years old. The reason I'm here today is because we actually are not at this point able to utilize public transportation effectively. The reason is because of so many what ifs. My son does not speak. He uses what we call an AAC device to speak. That's something that is not typically seen in the community. He also uses some sign, and he has autism. And so we're thinking, what if he uses public transportation? He's not, he's just alone with his aide or with his nurse because he has both. So if we're using public transportation, it's not only me as the caregiver, he has an aide and he also has a nurse to support other needs as well. He also has a suction machine. He also is in an adaptive chair that needs to be brought up on a wheelchair lift and then secured inside of the bus or whatever vehicle that he's in. We also have our bags in tow with his medical supplies. So needless to say, just our entourage of trying to get my son onto public transportation, sometimes we can be 4 people, and then we have all this equipment and we have this chair. And so what we're reaching out to find out is how can someone like my son, as he ages up and he starts to look to places like the Disability Resource Center for support, a center of independent living to see how independent he can be, what type of transportation modality could best support him. We live in Spotsylvania County. We have lived here for almost 18 years. It is beautiful. I did not realize until I had my son that it's not easy to navigate Spotsylvania County when you do not have your own transportation. I just had an issue recently, the end of last year, where my son was here and the snowstorm set in. And because of the area that we live in, we don't have what you would call, we don't have curbs here. We don't have shoulders here. It's gravel on the side. She got stuck. I had to get her out and take her back out to Route 3 and walk myself back to my house. I always did know that there were areas without sidewalks, but even me just trying to walk back in the snow, I was stepping out onto Route 3, trying to get back. And I thought, oh my goodness, I have a workaround for this because we have several vehicles that we can fit my son's chair in and all of his stuff so that we can avoid having to deal with the public transportation issue for right now. But we know that the day is coming as I'm aging, as my son is aging, we're going to have to make sure he has more mobility, more autonomy to get out in the community. And so if we can get ahead of this and find out how that situation with many people dealing with it every day won't have to be the reality for others who need to use things like sidewalks or public transportation, because it's not just for them, it's for healthcare providers who are trying to come into our community here in Spotsylvania to help those who live here. And then they get in and they have no way to get out in inclement weather and things like that. So I just wanted to speak today just to let people know that we have individuals that are coming of age and they're going to have alternate means of communication when they do enter public transportation. And it could be signed, like my son, it could be he's multimodality when he does communicate. We have participated in disability seminars where we have gone to speak to students getting ready to become doctors to show them you might run into someone who's communicating this way, and they might be trying to let you know what they need as far as a stop, you know, on public transportation or something like that. We're happy to do things like that because we know that it's not seen. We know that people might not understand that a hand gesture is sometimes a sign that they are communicating to you that they need stop or they need help when they're on public transportation. So I just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention, just let them know the amount of people that sometimes is needed, the extra equipment that we might have to board with, and just kind of partner with all of you to find out how can we have a system that will accommodate those things without the transportation time being increased, and also without that interfering with what Fred Bus needs to do for the community at large, because I know that it all comes down to how is the taxpayer best served. I'm not trying to say that everything needs to revolve around my son. Again, right now, my family has worked around it so that we do not do that. But I will, as I close, pose this, that when these buses have to use these wheelchair lifts on a public street, the extra time that it takes for them to stop and put that lift down and put someone on that and then lift it up, we experience it every day with the school bus, and then secure it. The drivers get impatient and they're waiting, and you've got people who have developmental disabilities, intellectual disabilities, and once that thing clears, those drivers, they zoom, and they don't know if we're clear or anyone else is clear. And so we know that that happens, but we're hoping to be part of forums like this to just kind of bring awareness to that, that's something that is a part of other people's day that they wish was not there. And so if we do use public transportation, how can we make it safe, not only for the accessibility of the walkways, but for the embarking and disembarking of the public transportation? Thank you all so much.
Thank you so much, Kimberly. We appreciate you being here with us today. Our last speaker of the day is Tamara Banks. And Tamara, go right ahead.
Hello, and thank you for the opportunity to speak here today. I really, really appreciate just being here in front of hearing the stories. So as Ms. Celeste said, my name is Tamara Banks. I am the travel trainer for Healthy Generations Area Agency on Aging, and I advocate for public transportation, and it's about independency. It's about making the person feel that they can do anything, the empowerment from using public transportation. There are some limitations and some setbacks. As a travel trainer, I have travel trained, Ms. Lett allowed me to travel train her son. And there are some limitations and some challenges out there. But without education, we do not know how to get past those challenges and limitations. As a travel trainer, I speak to a lot of people in the public. What are their needs? How can we meet their needs? Yes, auditory stops, stops for the stop signs and everything. That's awesome. We do need that for those who are visually impaired. Braille on the side of the bus stops, saying what bus stop it is and what route. That's awesome. We need that also. We need route shell to be a little bit more user-friendly, especially for those who are not accessible or know how to use a smartphone. And we all know that smartphones will give you a fit if you don't download programs right. But again, I have to go back to all of this does cost money. So I'm going to implore that all our local officials, our federal officials, please find the funding so we can make accessibility accessible for everybody. When I travel train, I love going out, talking to people about how to catch the bus, how to use the route shell program, how to use Google Maps, how to feel empowered when they are on the bus. But again, how many of you can actually sit here and say that you catch the bus? How many of you here can actually say that you know what it's like to be walking on the sidewalk and it suddenly ends and you have to get to the other end of that sidewalk? How many of you can say that you walked along Route 17 trying to get maybe to the gas station or maybe to work, and there are no sidewalks? We need to be a part of the planning. When housing facilities go up, stores go up, we need to be a part of that planning. We need to be there loud and say, hey, look, you're putting up these new places. Have you considered bus stops? Have you considered talking with our transit company about route changes? Those are the things that we miss when these exciting new stores and exciting new buildings go up. What are they doing to actually help communities stay accessible? Once we get to that point, then we can start making the changes that they need for accessibility. We do a walkability score. I teach crosswalk safety, intersection safety. I teach pedestrian safety. We also need to have driver safety for people out on the road so they can be aware that in this area, there are these challenges that you need to watch out for. Now, when you're driving and you're talking on your cell phone, it's a $250 fine. Shouldn't that fine go over to, if you're parked in a space that is van accessible, we start making the drivers also accountable. But we also got to be accountable for that education also. I challenge everyone here, get on the bus, ride the bus, understand that these challenges are not just for those with disabilities, but it's for all of us. I love catching the bus. It's part of my job to catch the bus, but I have a challenge too with catching the bus because I have to drive to the bus stop, which I have the option to. Not many of us here have that option to drive to the bus stop. I would love to talk to each one of you. I would love to travel train each one of you so you can see where we come in at. As for paratransit services, it's expensive. We have mobility options where you can actually call and we can schedule a ride. But again, we are limited. So we do have to turn people down, especially when we're getting over 300 calls a week. We want to help our community grow. We want to help our community stay independent. But these are ways that we can help you by you also helping us. And again, thank you for having me here today to talk about this. I'm very passionate about transportation and know that we are a community that are here for each other.
Mara, thank you very, very much for speaking today. We greatly appreciate it. So just to conclude, some of the topics that we've hit on today are walkability, having complete sidewalks, audio signals, enforcement of traffic violations, maintenance of paving on crosswalks, accessible parking as far as maintenance and enforcement, the ability to use, say, taxis and Ubers and such, and that there's not a limit on that. We've had several people call the Disability Resource Center when they've called a taxi or Uber, and the people, if they have a wheelchair or a service animal, the Uber or the taxi drive on by just because they don't want to deal with it. So having the ability to use that type of transportation accessibility that is outfitted for mobility devices, audio devices for the blind, the lengths of times on transfers with the buses. Two things that we did not hit, and that I know the Public Transportation Advisory Board is looking at, are local bus stops and which ones need to have covers and which ones need to have seats. Especially if you're in a wheelchair and it's raining, you don't want to be standing out there in the rain. But that would benefit everybody, not just people with disabilities, but it would help. There's curb cuts, having curb cuts in the right places. Sometimes there's curb cuts where there isn't even a sidewalk. One other thing we didn't mention was access to the VRE. The federal government has a mandate to hire a certain percentage of people with disabilities. People with disabilities can ride the VRE DC for jobs. It's just a matter of getting to the VRE that they're having troubles with. And then finally, paratransit was mentioned several times. What does it take for our community to look at a paratransit system, and what would it take to bring a paratransit system here? And finally, as Tamara summed up, is to have people with disabilities as part of the planning, future planning, when you're looking at accessibility with regards to transportation in the future. So we appreciate all the speakers that have brought these to our attention. And if any of the panelists that are visiting, listening here today have comments, please, we welcome anything you have to say. So please go ahead.
Yeah, decision makers and transportation officials. So this is your time to respond. Just please jump in like it's just an in-person discussion type deal and give a brief statement on what you have learned if you feel compelled to do so. You're also welcome to convey any information about progress that you know that's being made towards building an equitable transportation system. And if you're still just processing what you've heard today, you're welcome to just simply chime in and acknowledge that you're just still taking some time to digest everything you've heard.
Stacy, I'd like to begin, if I may. Hi, everyone. Jason Graham from the Fredericksburg City Council. And I just want to say thank you, first off, for giving us your stories. Really do appreciate hearing from each and every one of you. It's definitely been an education. I want to say hi to my neighbor, Mr. Fry. I live in Idlewild as well. And I've actually ridden the Fred bus several times in Idlewild to get to the VRE. I love it. It's actually one of the reasons we chose to live in Idlewild is for the convenience of the bus, and it's something that I want others to have, and it's something that I'm going to continue to fight for. I do want to give one small update. Recently, the Fredericksburg City Council held a 2-day offsite where we reassessed some priorities for the next 2 to 3 years. And I was able to add in a priority to create a transit-oriented development plan. And so I hope that everyone can help contribute to that, to be a part of that as we move forward there, because transit-oriented development, it's absolutely necessary. And whatever I can do to be of service, please feel free to reach out. I want to be an advocate for every single one of you, whether or not you live in the city. I also serve on the FAMPO policy committee. So for regional transportation, I'm very, very eager to help and be a part of the solution. So again, thank you so much for the invitation and for your stories and for the opportunity. It's been wonderful. Thank you.
Thanks.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Delegate Josh Cole, and I think I'm the only state rep on the call today. So I represent myself and a few other my colleagues. And thank you all so much for sharing your stories. Certain things that you have shared with me, some things I've known about, but some things you just had to share shed some light on. And we've been working very hard to try to figure out what we can do in our region, from the board of supervisors level to city council level, all the way up to the federal level. We saw Rep. Abigail Spanberger on the line as well. I've been trying my best. I'm not on the transportation committee in the House, but I've been trying my best to do some things that we can generate funds in our region to help out with transportation. We are still doing some work. And I will let you know that the stories you have shared today are not falling on deaf ears. I know that Delegate Jason Graham, wow, Councilor Jason Graham is doing a great work in the city of Fredericksburg. So thank you so much for all that you're doing. It's about partnership. And so we're going to do what we can. I've heard your stories. We're going to put those things, take it to heart and see what we can do to alleviate some of the issues and, move to a more equitable system. And so I'll put my contact information in the chat that you all can share with us. If you have any other concerns or you want to reach out to me directly, I'll make myself available for you all. Even if you just want me to say, hey, come walk my neighborhood with me and see the issue about the sidewalk, I'm willing to come do that. I know in the the Garrisonville area, I've been working with Supervisor Tanisha Allen down there on Onville Road. We have been trying to get sidewalks built down there. There are a lot of people who walk to and from the marketplace, the Stafford Marketplace, who live in Garrison Woods or who live back there. And so they have to brave the traffic. And as Kimberly, you were talking about your story of stepping onto Route 3, that's very, very dangerous. So we're trying to do what we can. We're putting some work in, but I'll make sure that I put my contact information. If anyone here, even if I'm your delegate or not, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. We can see what we can do and help elevate your story. So thank you today for sharing with us. I want to say I apologize. We're trying our best to do what we can. But sometimes just saying we're trying our best isn't doing the best. We really have to put the work in. So thank you so much for sharing your stories. Thank you for being here today. We hear you, and we are going to continue to put in the work for you all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Anybody else like to comment? Just go ahead and jump in if you'd want.
Yes, Stacy, I would like to comment.
Go ahead, Paul.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Paul Aniello. I'm the Transition Director for Spotsylvania County. I want to thank all the speakers. A great discussion, a good education. Just to highlight a few of the major takeaways that I heard from the discussion today. One, the issue about having needing adequate space next to handicap parking. That's kind of a pretty critical issue that I wasn't aware of. So we can take a look at that. And Spotsylvania County, just going forward, try to make sure that that's not an issue going forward. I'll say the need for more on-demand transit. I've heard that. I know that we support a healthy generation AAA, and maybe there are opportunities to improve that in Spotsylvania County and in the region. I also heard the comment about needing more sidewalk. I'll say in Spotsylvania County, we are on an aggressive campaign to expand sidewalk in the county. I said that putting sidewalk where there is not currently sidewalk can be very expensive. It's not just basically putting in the sidewalk, it's also putting in the curb and gutter. But I'll say we're basically putting in miles of sidewalk in the Lee Hill and basically 4 Mile Fork area. We're putting in sidewalk between Market Street and 4 Mile Fork on Route 1, along Lafayette Boulevard from 4 Mile Fork to the city line. We're also we partnered with the city to help them basically get some sidewalk on the city side of Lafayette Boulevard. We're also putting in a shared use path on Route 217 from the city line down to the south side of Shannon Airport. Additionally, we're basically pursuing shared use path along Harrison Road, as well as a number of other smaller projects. We also support Fred Transit. We have a good partnership with them. We're working with Fred to expand Fred Transit to other areas of Spotsylvania County. I'll say in the next few years, there will be a number of new projects in the county. The Route 217 corridor will have a lot of new Fred Transit service. Additionally, the Lafayette Boulevard and the Route 208 corridor will have a lot of new service, as well as basically along Route 1 to the a new VA healthcare clinic that will be going in basically roughly around the intersection of Route 1 and basically Hood Drive and Mine Road. Thank you all very much, and happy to be part of the discussion.
Thank you very much.
Would anyone else like to jump in?
Yes, Stacy, this is Jennifer at Healthy Generations. I did want to share, we do operate a small paratransit service. But part of what we do is look at unmet needs in our region, and we sort of pull that information together. And we do ask for funding for vehicles and for a small staff of drivers. And we do provide demand response service, which is something that is much different than on-demand service, which is something that the region desperately does need. And that may be something like those Uber and Lyft fares being reimbursed to people with disabilities. So, as we look to the future, paratransit is expensive to operate. And by its nature, it does have service limitations because there's only so many vehicles and so many drivers. So I think as we look to the future, we have to look for innovative solutions that kind of make the most of the funding that's out there. We can throw money at paratransit and that will expand the service a little bit, but we really have to look for innovative ways to cut costs and make things accessible for everyone. Tamara is a great part of my team. We push for folks to use public transit as much as possible because it takes the stress off of our small paratransit system. And Miss Leeds is right. She uses our service and we are overwrought. So we do what we can with what we have. Thank you. Thank everyone for sharing everything today. It's great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yes, this is Jamie Jackson with Fred Transit. I apologize that y'all can't see me at this moment. But just wanted to give a few updates. First, I have gotten a lot of information from this call, a lot of which I was not aware of. So, and when I say not aware, it was an issue because we have lots of challenges, but hearing the personal stories allows us to better analyze and assess how we do and make improvements. But that being said, and I'm actually out looking at items we plan, or one item that I want to make everyone aware of. Transition plan will start in school year 22, so sometime after July 1st. We will be doing a system-wide assessment. I just ask that the folks that are on call and those who have provided their support be involved in that process, and hopefully we can engage you directly. But this is an idea of we go in what areas we should serve and how we should serve them differently. Accessibility is a huge issue in this region. We have, stops anywhere due to ADA and accessibility we had, but we're working on that as part of this process. So, you are providing funding that's helping that because that is funded through FTA and the state. Fred is a little bit of a, we're going fast, slowly, or going slow fast, but we are working on it in the next year. Our operators should be doing announcements, but we are going to have annunciators on the bus within the next year. That is a project. We are working to implement that as we know of those challenges in our community, not only for those with disabilities, but those without. So we need to make sure everybody has access and we have an equitable system to get folks to get around. We are working on training for our operators, and I do want to make sure that we're focusing on accessibility and working with those overall. Fund service, but as we move forward in great here, some of the results from I would say that we have support. Just I know that because you're on the call, I say it because it's shown we funded. Within some months, what I can state for everyone on the call, you will see changes in Fred and how Fred operates to address a lot of these issues. We won't be perfect, but we will be better. That's become my so. I just wanted to put that out there. I hear your challenges, actually hear and see them like every day from our customers. I'm out there asking the question, how can we get better? But don't be afraid to let us know how we can get better, because that's our job. We are, we're not a social service, we're a public utility, and to operate that way. So a strategic plan for transit is coming. We're going to revamp our routes because I think some will say too, it is ridiculous that it takes the trips to get to.
Jamie, I think we're losing your audio.
But so I just wanted to share that information with everyone, that some of those comments you'll see for next year are being addressed. But thank you, Stacy.
Thanks, Jamie. We had audio issues there, but we heard some really great important points. So thank you. Your message did come through. Would anyone else like to chime in?
Stacy, this is Lee with GWI Connect, and I'm so glad that Jamie spoke before me because she has been doing some amazing things over at Fred, and they have some good things coming down the pipeline. And I'm really happy to support her here today. Also, I wanted to say that my own daughter is disabled. She went 8 minutes without vitals at birth, so she has expressive and receptive speech disorder, among other things. So I hear you about the wayfinding. It can be very difficult for someone who gets confused easily or cannot digest things as quickly to find their way around. And I appreciate all of you telling us what those things are. And I want you to keep telling people what those things are. keep coming to things like this, keep writing letters, because that's what helps. That's what helps us when we can say, we actually know this is impacting people. It's not just something we read. For an example, I've read that Uber isn't doing short trips, but now I can go into a meeting and say, I know for certain that Uber is not doing short trips. We cannot rely on transportation network companies to fill in the gap for the first mile and last mile. Walking is so important. The ability to walk is such, it should be, it should be the most basic form of transportation, yet we can't do it. But we do have it. We can make that happen, but just keep on with the good fight. I'm right here with you, and I will continue advocating as I always have. And thank you, everyone. I do thank you for your time to speak to us today.
Thanks, Lee. Do we have anyone else? We still have time for a few more comments. No? Okay. Well, go ahead and interrupt me. I'm going to give us some closing remarks, but if you're out there and you want to speak, go ahead and interrupt me, and that's fine. I just want to say thanks to all the virtual participants. I know that we've learned new perspectives here today. I kept hearing the phrase, I wasn't aware of that, I wasn't aware of that. So that's exactly the goal of this virtual panel, was to have those light bulb moments. It also was a goal to have our speakers simply felt heard. That means so much to them. So I thank you, decision makers and transportation professionals, for giving them that opportunity to be heard today. I also want to acknowledge that Sonia said that she trusts this government. So you guys showing up today proves that, you care about the residents and the citizens, and we thank you for taking your time for that. Thank you also, Disability Resource Center, for collaborating with FAMPO on this effort. If Disability Resource Center would like to make any last remarks, I'll turn it over to them. Otherwise, good evening to you all.
Thank you, Stacy. I like to thank everyone. I like to thank all of the advocates who shared their story today. I reached out to you and you just embraced wanting to talk to the decision makers. I thank you, all of the decision makers, for taking the time out to listen to us, to listen to the challenges within the disability community. And the key point that I want to make today is that I hope that our conversation does not end today. I would like to have a partnership to address these challenges. This is not just talking. We would like to see action. And so I thank you also, Stacy, for just being willing and open to work with the DRC when we asked you. And so I thank you for that. So those are my remarks. Thank you, everyone.
I'll concur with Deborah. I do appreciate everybody being here today, and I look forward to working with each of you in the future. So thank you.
Thank you all. Enjoy your evening. Go get some dinner.
Good night.
Good night.